Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
Do you remember the last time you said yes, when every single cell in your body was screaming no? Maybe it was last Tuesday. Maybe it was this morning. Maybe it happens so often you've stopped noticing the quiet flinch that happens inside you right before you smile and say, "Of course, I'd love to." That flinch. That little internal collapse. That's what we need to talk about. Because here's the thing nobody says out loud. And I want to say it out loud, right now, for you. People-pleasing isn't kindness. It was never kindness. It is fear wearing kindness as clothing. And at some point in your life, probably a long, long time ago, you learned that the safest thing you could do in this world was to make sure everyone around you was comfortable. Even if it cost you everything. Even if it cost you yourself. I want you to think about a woman. Maybe she reminds you of someone you know. Maybe she reminds you of yourself. She's the one who bakes the casserole for the neighbor she doesn't particularly like. She's the one who stays on the phone an extra 40 minutes because she doesn't know how to say, "I have to go." She's the one who rearranges her whole Saturday, her only quiet Saturday, because someone needed a favor and she couldn't bear the thought of disappointing them. She is, by every outward measure, a good woman, generous, reliable, sweet, everyone says so, and she is exhausted in a way that sleep cannot fix. Because it's not the body that's tired, it's the soul. The part of her that has been folded up, tucked away, made smaller and smaller over the years to fit into whatever shape the room needed her to be. Does any of that feel familiar? Here's what I've come to understand, not just as someone who has studied the human mind, but as someone who has lived in that skin. Who knows the particular weight we carry when we've spent decades being everything to everyone and a stranger to ourselves? People-pleasing doesn't arrive in your life as something ugly. It doesn't announce itself as a problem. It comes dressed up as virtue. It comes with gold stars and warm hugs and "what would we do without you?" It feels, for a long time, like the right way to be a woman in this world. And why wouldn't it? Think about everything you were taught, quietly, loudly, directly, and through 1,000 unspoken truths passed down through kitchens and church pews, and women who loved you but were also trapped themselves. Be agreeable. Don't make a fuss. Smile through it, keep the peace. Be the bigger person. Don't be difficult. Difficult. God, that word. How many of us have contorted our entire lives to avoid being called that one word? The sanctuary you never had permission to build was a life that had room in it for your needs, your desires, your unedited, uncurated, unapologetic self. And here you are, maybe 55, maybe 65, maybe 70, and something is shifting. Something quiet but insistent has started whispering underneath all the business, all the caregiving, all the yes-saying. It's asking a question you might be afraid to answer. When does it get to be my turn? That whisper is not selfishness. That whisper is wisdom. That whisper is the truest, most alive part of you, finally refusing to stay quiet. And I want to tell you, with everything I know about how human beings are wired, with everything I know about what it costs a woman to spend her life being agreeable, that whisper deserves to be heard. Not someday. Not when everyone else is settled. Not when things calm down now. Right now. In this moment. Because you have given so much for so long, and the world kept receiving it, and somewhere in that exchange you started to believe that your comfort, your boundaries, your voice were optional. Negotiable. Less important than everyone else's. They aren't. And the rest of what we're going to walk through together is going to show you, gently, honestly, how you got here, what it's costing you, and what it looks like to finally come home to yourself. But first, you need to sit with this: you are not too much. You are just never given enough space. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to disappear. It happens slowly. So slowly you don't even feel it happening. One small surrender at a time, one tucked away feeling at a time, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you're not quite sure who's looking back at you. Not because something went wrong with you, but because something happened to you. A long time ago, in rooms you can still smell if you close your eyes. Let's go back there for a moment, not to hurt you, but to free you. Think about the little girl you used to be, before you knew the rules, before you understood what was acceptable and what made the room go cold and quiet. She was in there, curious, loud sometimes, maybe a little stubborn, full of feelings she hadn't learned to apologize for yet. And then something happened. Maybe it was one moment. Maybe it was 1,000 small moments, woven together like thread, until they became the fabric of how you understood the world. Maybe your mother was a woman who needed you to be easy because her life was already hard. And so you learned, without anyone ever saying the words, that being easy was how you kept her okay. That your calm was the price of her calm. That your needs, set aside quietly, were an act of love. Maybe there was a father who went silent when he was displeased. And silence in that house was a kind of weather. And you became an expert meteorologist. You learned to read the room before you walked into it. You learned to adjust your temperature to match his. You learned that the safest version of you was the version that didn't ask for too much. Maybe it wasn't your parents at all. Maybe it was a marriage that taught you that keeping the peace was your job. Or a friendship where your role was the listener, the fixer, the one who held everyone else together while quietly falling apart in private. Whatever the room was, you learned, you adapted, and that adaptation was brilliant. I want you to hear that. The people-pleasing little girl, the agreeable young woman, the endlessly accommodating wife or mother or daughter. She wasn't weak. She was strategic. She found a way to feel safe in an environment that didn't always make room for her full self. The tragedy isn't that she learned to do that. The tragedy is that she never got the memo that she could stop. There's a term in psychology, and stay with me, because this isn't a lecture. This is just a name for something you've already lived. It's called the fawn response. Most people know fight or flight. Some know freeze, but fawn is the one that lives in the bodies of so many women who grew up in households where conflict felt dangerous, or love felt conditional, or being too much of yourself felt like a risk you couldn't afford. Fawning is what happens when a child learns that the way to stay safe, to stay loved, to stay chosen, is to anticipate what other people need and provide it before they even ask. It is appeasement as a survival skill. And for a child in the right, or rather, the wrong, circumstances, it works. It genuinely works. But you're not a child anymore. And the strategies that kept you safe at 7 or 17 or even 37, they're running on autopilot inside a 60-year-old woman who has more wisdom, more strength, and more quiet power than that little girl could have ever imagined. The pattern outlived its purpose. That's all. It's not a character flaw. It's not proof that you're broken or too sensitive or, God forbid, difficult. It's an old coat you put on so long ago you forgot you were wearing it. Here's what I want you to sit with. Every time you said yes when you meant no, you weren't being generous. You were being afraid. Afraid of the silence. Afraid of the disappointment on someone's face. Afraid of the version of yourself that takes up space, asks for things, says actually, no, that doesn't work for me. And that fear made perfect sense once upon a time. It just doesn't have to be the whole story anymore. Because here's the unspoken truth that women in their second half of life are just beginning to whisper to each other over coffee, over phone calls, in the quiet hours after everyone else has gone to bed. I have been so busy being what everyone needed that I forgot to ask what I needed. And asking that question, really asking it, and staying still long enough to hear the answer, that is not selfishness. That is the beginning of the bravest thing you'll ever do. There's a particular kind of tired that doesn't show up on any medical test. Your doctor checks your blood work, looks at the numbers, tells you everything looks fine, and you nod and smile and say, that's good to hear. But on the drive home, something in you wants to pull over and just sit there. Because fine doesn't begin to describe what you actually feel. And you're not sure you have the words for what you actually feel. Only that it lies somewhere behind your sternum, heavy and unnamed, like a stone you've been carrying so long you've stopped noticing the weight. That stone has a name. It's called a life half-lived. Let's be honest with each other right now. The kind of honest that doesn't happen at dinner tables or in polite conversation, but happens at 3 a.m. when the house is quiet and the thoughts you've been outrunning all day finally catch up with you. How many times have you swallowed something true because the timing wasn't right? How many opinions have you softened? How many needs have you postponed? How many versions of, no, really I'm fine, have you offered up like a small sacrifice on the altar of keeping the peace? And what has it cost you? Not in some abstract philosophical sense, Right now, concretely, in the actual texture of your daily life. It cost you your body first. This is the part people don't talk about enough. People-pleasing isn't just an emotional pattern. It lives in your nervous system. It lives in the tension across your shoulders that never quite releases. In the jaw you clench at night. In the stomach that tightens the moment your phone rings and you see a particular name. In the headaches that arrive on Sunday afternoons when Monday is coming and Monday means performing okayness for another week. Your body has been keeping score this whole time. Every suppressed no, every bitten tongue, every feeling you smiled through rather than named, your body registered it, filed it away. And now it's presenting you with the bill. Chronic stress, disrupted sleep, inflammation, anxiety that feels like it has no reason to be there, except it does have a reason. And the reason is that you have been living in a low-grade state of self-abandonment for a very, very long time. It costs you your relationships too. And this one is quietly heartbreaking. Because here's the paradox nobody warns you about. The more you people please, the less real your relationships become. You think you're keeping people close by being agreeable, by never rocking the boat, by making yourself easy to love. But what you're actually doing is keeping the real you at a careful distance. And people can feel that even if they can't name it. They get the performance. They get the accommodating, always available, never a burden version of you. But they never quite get you. And somewhere underneath all the surface warmth, underneath all the yes saying and the showing up and the giving, you feel lonely. Profoundly, confusingly lonely. Because you are surrounded by people who love a version of you that you had to shrink yourself to become. That loneliness isn't ingratitude. It's a signal. It's the truest part of you saying, I want to be actually known. Not just appreciated, known. And then there's the cost that keeps me up at night when I think about the women I've worked with over the years. It costs you time. And at 55, 65, 75, time is the one currency you cannot earn back. Every year spent contorting yourself to manage other people's emotions is a year you didn't spend figuring out what you actually wanted. What brought you alive? What made you feel like yourself rather than a very well-rehearsed version of yourself? I've sat across from women in their 70s who have a light in their eyes. This fierce, electric, almost defiant light, who told me that learning to say no was the thing that gave them back their lives. Not therapy, not medication, not any grand epiphany. Just the quiet, revolutionary act of saying no, that doesn't work for me, and letting the discomfort of that sit in the room without rushing to fix it. They all said the same thing, in different words. I wish I had started sooner. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really stay with the question rather than answer it too quickly. What are you postponing? Not the vacation or the hobby or the thing you keep saying you'll do someday. I mean the deeper thing. The conversation you haven't had. The boundary you haven't drawn. The version of yourself you keep promising to become once everyone else is settled. Once things calm down. Once it's finally your turn. What if this is the turn? What if this moment, right now at exactly this age, with exactly this ache in your chest? What if this is not too late but precisely, perfectly on time? Because everything we've walked through together, the origin, the pattern, the cost, it all leads to the same place. The place where you decide that your life belongs to you. And that place, that's where we're going next. I want you to imagine something with me. Not a fantasy. Not some polished, Pinterest, perfect vision of a transformed life. Something quieter than that. Something real. Imagine waking up one morning, not dramatically different, not suddenly fearless, but just a little lighter. Imagine moving through your day and noticing, with something close to wonder, that you said no to something small. Maybe you didn't stay on the phone past the point of exhaustion. Maybe you didn't volunteer for the thing you didn't want to do. Maybe you simply let a silence sit there, uncomfortable and unresolved, without rushing in to smooth it over. And the world didn't end. Nobody stopped loving you. The relationship didn't collapse. The sky stayed exactly where it was. And in that small, unheroic, almost invisible moment, you felt something you hadn't felt in a long time. You felt like yourself. That's what coming home feels like. It doesn't arrive with trumpets. It arrives in the ordinary moments, the small choices, the quiet places where you used to disappear, and now, slowly, you stay. And I want to be honest with you about something, because you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort right now. This is not easy work. The people in your life have grown accustomed to a particular version of you. The version that says yes. The version that absorbs, accommodates, rearranges. And when you begin, even gently, even incrementally, to show them a different version, some of them will not know what to do with it. Some will push back. Some will call you selfish, distant, difficult. They'll use that word again, difficult. And here is what I want you to remember in that moment, when the guilt rises up like a tide and every old instinct tells you to apologize, to soften, to take it back. Someone calling you difficult simply means you have stopped being easy to take advantage of. That's not an indictment of your character. That's evidence that it's working. So what does the actual path forward look like? Not in theory. In the texture of a real Tuesday afternoon in a real woman's real life, it starts with the pause. Before you answer, before you automatically yes your way into another obligation that will cost you your Saturday, your energy, your peace, you pause. Just a breath. Just a moment in that sanctuary of space between the ask and the answer. And in that pause, you check in with the part of you that has been waiting patiently, so patiently to be consulted. Do I actually want to do this? Does this feel like genuine generosity? Or does it feel like fear? That question alone, asked honestly and answered honestly, will begin to change everything. Because here's what happens when you start distinguishing between giving that comes from fullness and giving that comes from fear. The giving that remains, the yes as you choose with your whole heart, becomes something different entirely. They become real. They become gifts instead of ransoms. And the people on the receiving end will feel that difference, even if they can't explain why. There's something else I want to leave with you. Something that took me years to fully believe. Your needs are not an imposition on the world. They are not too much. They are not the evidence of some fundamental deficiency in your character. They are simply yours. They belong to you with the same quiet authority that your heartbeat belongs to you. They don't need to be earned or justified or apologized for. You are allowed to be tired and say so. You are allowed to disagree and say so. You are allowed to want things, specific, particular, unapologetic things, and pursue them without first making sure everyone around you is comfortable with the pursuit. You are allowed to take up space. And I know that might feel almost radical after a lifetime of making yourself smaller. It might feel selfish in a way that sits uneasily in your chest. But sit with that uneasiness rather than running from it. Because on the other side of it is something the women who've walked this path before you all describe the same way. They call it relief. A bone, deep, soul exhaling, finally I can breathe relief. Like setting down a bag you carried so long you forgot it wasn't part of your body. You are somewhere between 55 and 75 years old. And I know the world sometimes makes women in that season feel like they are past the point of reinvention, past the point of claiming something new, past the point of mattering in the ways they once did. That is one of the quietest, cruelest lies our culture tells. Because the truth, the real, unspoken truth that women in this season of life are just beginning to give each other permission to say, is that this is not the closing chapter. This is the one where you finally stop performing and start living. This is the chapter with the most honesty in it, the most self-knowledge, the most capacity to choose your life with open eyes rather than inherited fear. The women who move through this season with that electric light in their eyes. The ones who feel alive in a way that has nothing to do with youth. They all made one fundamental decision. They decided that they were worth the discomfort of changing. So here is what I want to leave you with. Not a checklist, not 5 steps. Just this. Somewhere inside you, underneath all the years of yes, saying and shrinking and smoothing things over, there is a woman who knows exactly what she thinks, who knows what she wants, who has opinions and preferences and boundaries and desires that are specific and real and hers. She has been waiting, not impatiently, not bitterly, just waiting, with a kind of faithful, stubborn persistence, trusting that someday you would come back for her. Today can be that day. Not tomorrow when things settle. Not after the holidays, after the grandchildren visit, after everything calms down. Today, in this ordinary, unremarkable moment, you can make the quiet decision to stop abandoning yourself. You can let her out. You can let her speak. You can let her finally take up the space she was always meant to occupy. That's not the end of something. That's the whole beautiful, terrifying, long overdue beginning